Always a tech glitch, I swear, every day. Okay, we got yeses. They can hear.
Okay, yay. All right, I'm so excited to dive in. Just so everyone knows, me and Marissa were on the phone like a couple weeks ago. She's like, oh my gosh, I got these test results. And I was like, we're freaking out and having this conversation. And that's how this meeting like came to be, because I was like, we need to talk about this. So here we are. And I'm glad you guys are all here. I can't see comments or anything. So you're going to have to let me know if anyone has like a question.
Okay, I have the chat open on my phone.
Oh, maybe I could open it on my phone too. Let me see.
If you guys have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. So this is my good friend, Coach Sarah Joy. She is the most amazing coach and thyroid warrior. We met when we were in nutrition school, and we've stayed close because we both just share the same passion for helping other women to take back power over their own health and live the lives that they have always meant to be living, instead of suffering in silence and just going to a million endless doctor's appointments and being miserable. So welcome, Coach Sarah Joy.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
So why don't we start with just how you became passionate about this, because you have a whole long background of thyroid illness, which, you know, brought you to us today. So like similar to my long gut health story, it's like, I think we're both kind of grateful for that journey because it brings us to being able to help other people. So why don't you share a little bit about what your health journey has been like?
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you guys all for being here. And, you know, I love that you said that it brings us to where we are now. Once upon a time, when I was sick for 10 straight years, I never in a million trillion years thought I would be a coach or teaching other people. I was just so deep in the anguish, the pain, and doctor hopping and just all the things. So it really truly has been a blessing to go through hell and back to be able to help women nowadays. So I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism. Okay, so my story kind of revolves. I will try to condense it. It's so fucking long.
Sarah's a talker, everybody. But
I know. I'm sorry, you guys. I am a talker. And I like cussing, so I hope you guys don't mind. I don't mind. I have all my clients do like a timeline of like onset of symptoms. What was your trigger, right? So I've done this with myself a bazillion times, and mine goes back to the 2008 crash. Everything that happened in 2008, I was 26, 27. Everything that could go wrong happened. My house was put up for auction out from under me. The landlord stopped paying the rent, was still collecting, didn't say anything. My husband, third round of layoff because he was like based around the construction industry, lost his job, and pretty much like just this whole wave of layoffs went through my neighborhood. And I'd been married for 7 years. My son was like 3. And it was just this nightmare of like losing my house, losing our stable income, right? Trauma. And then my husband decided, he said to me one day, you know, I really want to start sleeping with other women. And decided to while we're still married. Yeah. In the middle of his drunken crisis, he decided he was going to start cheating on me. So I'm in the middle of moving out, packing my house, moving in with my in-laws, who I didn't want to move in with. He's deciding to move in with other girls, and it was just literally a shit show, like of all areas. I had a full-time job. I was a receiving manager, and I was just literally trying to work and raise my son. That's it, right? And so obviously all these back-to-back, like literally within 2-month time frame, back-to-back traumas, it sent me into all sorts of just health, depression, crisis of all kinds. Like I no longer ate. I literally was living on Starbucks smoothies, Zevia sodas, and like a Cliff protein bar. That was it. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I was crying all day. I would listen to angry music to be able to just keep my thoughts off of like what I was going through. It was just a nightmare. And this went on for about 6 months. This state that I was in. I lost about 40 pounds, and I'm just naturally thin to begin with. So I'm 5'9", so I was 117 pounds. People were literally making fun of me, saying, go eat a fucking hamburger. And I was like, I will murder you. You know, shut up. And yeah, it was the worst thing that ever happened to me. So things started smoothing out, and I mean, sort of coming back together. My husband came back. I will not go into that side of it. And it was about 3 months after this, I started having an onset of really strange symptoms all over my body. And in the middle of the 2008 crash, I lost my full-time. They forced us to part-time, took away our 401k, bennies, everything. So I had no medical benefits to go to the doctor. I didn't know what to do. So I was like, thinking it honestly was work related. So I workman's comped to the urgent care and told the dude all these like weird pains I was having in my forearms and my knees and all this like fatigue and stuff that was setting in. I had no idea. He was like, let's check your thyroid. So he basically was like, oh, your thyroid's under functioning. It was at like a 7.2, my TSH. And this just asshole nonchalant doctor threw a diagnosis at me, says, follow up with your primary doctor, go get some meds, and walks out the door. So it's kind of like that typical story of where everyone is like, they get a label slapped on them, and I walk out stunned and in shock, and I get in my truck and I just bawl my eyes out, you know, because I'm like, I don't have a primary, I don't have what meds, you know, just the whole thing. So a little did I know that that was going to be the beginning of 10 years of hell. And so I called back the next day, got my little pill, drove to the CVS, took my pill, and I was like, okay, so all I have to do is take a pill every day and I'm good. Right? Like, so naive, had no idea what I was up in for. And so over the next 10 years, I describe it as I went from sick to sicker to sickest. And it was like, the harder I tried to be healthier, the sicker I was getting. And so by 2015, I'd hit a wall where like my anxiety was so severe, I couldn't function at work. My fatigue was so severe, I just couldn't function in life. I had no strength. I was too weak to like drive. And I was like literally feeling like I was going to fall over and die, clinging onto the shopping cart and envisioning like waking up to paramedics over me because I fainted because I was so weak and fatigued. Like, bad, right? As bad as being living on energy drinks, living on freaking coffee, which didn't help. And just everything was a mess. So in 2015, I was like, doctor, please take me out on disability. And he was like, oh, you're just stressed and you just have, you know, depression. And he's like, go to the therapist. And he wanted to shrink me up, basically thinking that it was just all in my head. So I passed the shrinks test. He took me on a disability, and I just dumped all my disability money into a functional medicine doctor. She pulled a bazillion blood labs on me and was like, oh, you're not absorbing, and oh, you have Hashimoto's, and oh, you have EBV, and just kind of dabbled in some things, gave me a ton of B12 shots, did some vitamin pushes in my arms, sent me to the sauna. And that was basically it. And it was like freaking $5,000 later, right? So it was after that I was like, you know what? I've seen 3 endos, 4 primaries. She was like my 3rd holistic doctor. And I tried like so many compounded medications, all these things. I was like, nothing's working. So I literally made the conscious decision to allow myself to be killed by this thing, whatever this thing was. And I remember saying, fine, thyroid cancer, you want to kill me, kill me. And it was like, I succumbed to total depression of like, I cannot fight this fight anymore. And that was it. And I just found myself in like a dark hole. Next thing I know, my brother got released from prison. He was in for 10 years, and that created some conflict, but like more happiness in my life because he was my best friend. He ended up getting shot 14 times by the San Diego Police Department. Literally, we talked that night. The next morning, it was all over the news. And it was at that moment that I was like, you know what? Life is really short and precious. And I hate my life. I hate my husband. I hate my in-laws. I hate my home. I still lived with my in-laws, right? We were there for that whole time. And I was like, I literally hate everything about my life and my health, and I want to change everything. And it was like, I call it like that hammer down. Like I made that decision, like I'm done. And I started selling everything, my blender, my bike, because I wasn't working. I had to go back to work. And I saved up $500 and I started packing everything. And I was texting anyone and everyone. I was like, can I move in with you? Can I move in with you? So I found somewhere to move into, some random person. I filed for divorce. The day I moved into her home, I enrolled in full-time school. I was homeless for 6 months, couch surfing in school, living on like my social worker's support, putting myself, so happy, making all these changes. I moved back home. And then I found the school that we were in together. And it was like all these pieces started coming together. And then all of a sudden I found a program. I found an avenue where I could start like through a doctor's license where I could start pulling tests on myself. So I'd moved, filed for divorce. I'm in school. I'm doing all these things. I got myself stable in a new environment and I was happy. And I was like, I'm still really sick. I have to attack this. So I started guinea pigging myself, pulled like all the tests, like the popular tests. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was like, I'll do my cortisol. I was literally like a kid in the candy store. I'll do my food allergies. Okay, ordered that one. I'll do my cortisol. Did that one. And I just was like, and then I would go to my doctor. This is when I started really taking my power back. And I was telling my doctors what to do at this point. I was like, fuck you, you're going to listen to me. So I would go in with a list to my doctor's bag. I want this lab, this lab, this lab. And they'd be like, okay. And so I started collecting all of these results and putting all the pieces together of why I was having every single symptom. And I didn't know at the time that I was like building my own protocols and like doing all these things myself, but that's what I was doing. And I just started doing all of these things, anything and everything. And I reversed 25 symptoms. I've undiagnosed myself from hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's. And then I got my certification, I got my degree, and then I launched my company, and it's been a blast ever since.
I love it. That is just such an amazing, amazing story. And I think that probably so many women out there are going, yep, that happened to me. That happened to me. That happened to me. It's the same old story. I know you hear it all the time with your clients. I hear it all the time with my clients. Like you said, doctor hopping, getting this prescription and getting sent on your way. And the fact that you were able to like pick yourself up and not only get yourself to the place where you could work on your own healing, but then decided to turn it into helping other people is just such an amazing story. And I have goosebumps because it's a tragedy turned into, look at how many people you're helping and you are impacting so many lives. And so I just think that's such an amazing story. And I would love it if you would share with us, because I think there's a lot of myths and a lot of misconceptions around thyroid illness and all of the things that go along with it, the hormones and the various things. And I think it's such a mystery what it even is, what its purpose is. Like, will you just kind of enlighten us to the thyroid, what it does, why it's even there, and why do we need it to be functioning well?
Yeah. And you know what? That's such a good question. In my community, I have a community as well on this platform called Mighty Networks. It's called the Butterfly Gang is the name of my community. And the first opening call that I did was Thyroid Function 101. And then I did Thyroid Malfunction 101. Because a lot of women don't even understand the basic anatomical situation. And so when you're trying to advocate and fight for yourself, but you really don't understand what the hell you're even fighting for, like it's a gap. Yeah. So, the thyroid is a part of the whole endocrine system. What really pisses me off about the medical system, especially the mainstream system, is they want to pretend like the thyroid is just like this thing over here by itself. And it's just like your thyroid. And it's like, hold up, guys. Like, you need to realize it's connected to your ovaries, right? Your whole reproductive system. It's connected to your adrenal glands, which everyone pretty much knows that at this point. But it's also connected to 2 parts in your brain. And it has a parathyroid in the back of it that controls your calcium. Most people don't even realize that, right? And so it's like, this is my favorite way to look at it too. If you know the chakra system, right? The chakra points, it hits the hypothalamus, the thyroid, the parathyroid, the adrenals, which are right on your sacral chakra, the right here, right under, on top of your kidneys. And then it hits your uterus. Like, It's in alignment with your chakra system. And
That's interesting. I never put that together. That's fascinating.
yeah, it's beautiful. If you look on my account, I did a side by side of the endocrine system and the chakra system. So it's a very crucial system. And I want to refer to it as that. So people, you got to get out of the mindset of segregating it. Okay. So the thyroid's function is, everyone's like, oh, it controls our metabolism. It does so much more than that. It controls, it helps manage. Okay. People say it's like the master brain. I look at it more as like a secondary manager, right? So it's a part of the hormone system, right? Everyone wants to also think like PCOS is separate from the thyroid, or the reproductive system is separate from the thyroid. It's really not. They're all in one, right? They all work together. And so it's just one of the glands that sends out particular thyroid hormones. There's T1, T2, T3, T4. And these work in conjunction with our aldosterone, our testosterone, our estrogen, right? It's a part of the hormone function as a system. And so when you're thinking about thyroid hormones and what they do for you, I don't want you to separate them from your estrogen, your testosterone, because it all controls your system together. And so it helps monitor our body and keeps our energy. It is attached to our energy first and foremost, but it also is the best friend to your adrenal glands. Like when people's TSH goes down and it's at that point on a lab where it's starting to malfunction, I'm more concerned about your adrenal glands first, because your adrenal glands more hold up your thyroid, where people think it's the other way around. Like your thyroid's functioning and your adrenals. Your adrenals are more hand in hand with your thyroid. So when I'm looking at my clients' hair tissue mineral analysis, I'm looking at adrenal thyroid function combined when it comes to energy, when it comes to stamina, when it comes to emotional stability, when it comes to reproductive health. So does that help explain a little bit?
It does. And I love that you're bringing up that nothing works on its own in the body, not a single thing. And in our medical system, they really like to separate everything. And that's why you have this specialist and this specialist, and they don't talk to each other, and they don't do anything supporting to make sure that the rest of the system is supporting what their focus is, right? Like they have their focus and they were trained on that one thing. And I think a big difference between what you and I do and what our medical system does is we do look at the whole body as one big system, right? We don't look at the gut being separate from anything else. The gut affects everything else. You don't look at the thyroid being separate from the rest of the endocrine system. And supporting the whole system is how you're really going to improve it, right? So talk a little bit about, how the thyroid can sort of become dysfunctional. And, you brought up your example of stress, but what are some other things that can really affect how the thyroid works?
The number one causer of thyroid malfunction that I found in myself, that I'm finding in all of my clients, is actually pathogen infections, specifically the Epstein-Barr. One of the things that I started looking at within myself was my herpes, because I contracted herpes using my French chapstick, and I started getting cold sores in high school. And then I had a boyfriend who had mono, but I never felt like I got mono, but I was around him while he was actually sick. And then, so I had these different exposures that I knew of. And so when I was guinea pigging myself, that was one of the tests I went to my doctor, and I was like, you're going to do this. I made him pull my EBV and my herpes, and sure, they came back positive, but I wanted to see the number, like the severity of the infection. And I was around, so the lab goes from 0 to 600, most labs. And I was like pretty much at the 600 range. And so when I started like antiviral protocols and really addressing infections, I had a lot of strep throat. And so strep is a co-infection to Epstein-Barr, which Epstein-Barr and herpes I kind of like lumped together. If you've had one or both of those, you probably have a strep infection as well. And so, and a lot of my clients will come to me, yes, I've been tested positive with herpes, simplex 1, simplex 2, or yes, I've had mono. Or they'll be like, I had such severe strep throat that I had my tonsils taken out. And it is very troublesome to the thyroid gland in particular, because it will go into the thyroid gland and it'll actually start burrowing and attacking the thyroid gland and destroying the actual cells and the function of it. And so it's funny, if you look at one of the posts I just did, my client last week, her TSH was at a 15.4, which was terribly under functioning. And all I started doing was addressing her nutrient deficiencies, her gut health, and her infection status. And her TSH just naturally dropped. No medication changes, nothing, to a 5.4. We're only 4 points away from stabilizing her at a 1.5. And I'm not even necessarily focused on the thyroid. I'm focused on all the other things, and it's healing the thyroid and the issues with the thyroid. Because like you said, everything's connected, right?
Yeah. So what I talk about a lot in, addressing symptoms, because a lot of people just want to address the symptoms. Like, what can I do for bloating? What can I do for constipation? What can I do for thyroid? And what we need to do, and I think you agree with me on this, is start with building the foundation of your health, which is things like nutrition and sleep and stress and, nutrient deficiencies. Look at some of those. Look at your gut bacteria, see if there's any, bacterial infections going on. Get your body to the place where it is so strong that it can start to then work properly, and it can start to then heal itself. Does that resonate with you?
100,000%. That is exactly what I focus on, is fortifying the foundation, which is stress management, nutrition, gut health. When you think root chakra, right? Like, that's gut. That is the foundation. That's the root. So we address trap trauma, we address stress, we address the nutrition and the gut health. And when I say nutrition, that also goes into vitamin and mineral deficiencies. I'm also sort of like a mineral specialist on top of the thyroid specialist, on top of the gut specialist. So those are the catalysts and the foundations, the gut, the minerals, and the nutrition. And I mean, I have a series that I'm teaching in my course right now in my community. It's called the 10 root causes of thyroid illness, the 10 root cause factors of thyroid illness. And so we can go into the spiritual depletions, the trap trauma, the gut health, the nutritional imbalances, the pathogen infections. There's quite a lot of things that, as a whole body coach like you, that we have to really start focusing on. And the beautiful thing, like you said before, is when you start focusing on one thing, it affects this thing over here. So you get multidimensional healing all at the same time. It's really beautiful.
And I think that is what is really frustrating with people who just want to get their medical bills covered by insurance, right? Because things that are covered by insurance are going to be those, separated out things. And
I call it the shit that don't work.
Basically, yeah. And that's what our system is built around. And so for me, it took me decades, it took you 10 years, but doing your own work. And so I feel like if our medical system is not going to catch on to this foundation building of health, that people really need to start taking control of their own health. And, that's why you and I do what we do, because it's just not happening in the mainstream medical world.
No,
So,
it's all financial based. You're just a customer to your doctor. You're just a customer to the pharmacy. That's it. They don't want to get you better because they'll lose their business. And, thyroid medication, oh, it's just disgusting. The sales and the projections around that. You can look up the main person that owns like the levothyroxine, the Synthroid and everything, and their projected sales for what their thyroid meds are going to like bring in next year, the furthest, second year. And I'm sitting here looking at that and I'm like, that means that doctors have to actually diagnose people with a thyroid condition for their sales to be projected to go up. I'm like, this is unreal.
Yeah. So what is your advice to all of the women out there that are listening to this on how they can take back control over their own health? What are some good next steps for them?
Well, I think first of all, working with a coach, getting in the community where you have the guidance and direction. That's the first thing that everyone says to me when they find me on Instagram, when they talk, when we have a discovery call, they're like, I don't know where to begin. Right. So you need to get a handle on this situation, whether it's hiring you, it's hiring me, coming into community, coming into my community, and really not trying to DIY your situation. Okay. So the best way for me, the way I get such fabulous results, and I'm sure you get amazing results too with your clients, is we use specific testing that works. Okay. It's root cause, shows you exactly what's wrong. And then you have we know what's wrong. Now we can build and provide you the guidance of where you need to go. So these are the foods you need to eat. These are the supplements you need to take. These are the lifestyle changes you need to implement, and have someone that you can trust that has, good reputation of good results with their clients, and invest in yourself. If I wasn't willing to take my own money and start investing into myself, and I know, and I'm saying this like investing in the right way, because I know we try the doctors, and I know I tried the investment in the mainstream, it didn't get me anywhere. So I'm saying invest in the right avenues, invest in the things that are going to actually move the needle forward, because they're there. That's why we exist, because we reversed our own issues, and we want to help people do the same. So we're not trying to just like bait and switch anyone, because we know how it feels to chronically suffer. So find that thing that's going to give you the actual answers of what's wrong with you, so you can get the direction. And then once you have that direction and you stay consistent and diligent, and that's really just comes down to self-love, self-worth, loving yourself enough to do these things every day and take your supplements every day and change your diet. And don't just pretend like you're going to not eat dairy. Don't eat dairy. Don't just be like, I'll try to be dairy free. No, really go dairy free. If you know that that's highly affecting you, get serious. Diligence and consistency and self-love really will move that needle forward.
And I think another thing too is coming up with your why, because, a lot of people in this group, a lot of people watching have children. And I think for those of us who are parents, our big why is to not only be a good example for our children, because our children are watching us all the time. And if we don't take care of ourselves, they are going to learn that. And that's a big hurdle for moms to get over, because moms want to put everybody else first, even if you're not a mom. A lot of times women put their job first, put their husband first, their dogs, their house, all of those things. So putting yourself first really is not selfish. It's what we need to do to be able to take care of other people. So we want to be a good example to our children, but we also want to be able to be there for all of the things that our children do as they get older. So, if that's your big why, like focus on that. What is going to get you to the place where you can play with your great grandchildren because you're 85 years old and you're still running around and happy and healthy, right? So having sort of that North Star, that big reason is huge, because when you think about it that way, you'll go, okay, I'll take the money out of my pocket and invest in myself. I'm not going to rely on this shit that's covered by insurance anymore. Like I need to do this for myself. So having that big why is a good thing. But so we need to start, like you said, with finding out the root cause. And that's what we talk about in this group all the time. I talk about, putting Band-Aids on everything is like, if you're going to build your health home, you don't go out and buy all the throw pillows first, right? Like you don't just go out and go, well, I'm going to take a probiotic and it's going to solve all my problems. That's a throw pillow. So what we need to do is build the health foundation. We got to lay the foundation, build the pillars, put the walls in. And so that is, a lot of what gets covered by our Biomefx testing is finding out at the very, very, very basic tiniest level, those little bacteria that are in your gut are in charge of everything. So finding out what those guys are up to, figuring out why and how you got to this place, figuring out, because we're really putting puzzle pieces together. Like you can't just look at that gut test and go, oh, I know what's wrong with you. Like it's a puzzle. And so you and I sit and go, okay, well, this happened and this happened, and we put it all together. Then that's how we build the foundation, because we know exactly where to start in getting you that health home. So let's talk a little bit about the Biomefx testing, because you and I are both so passionate about it. It's a game changer. I know that for my clients, and I think you would say the same thing. So what is your, main goal with doing that testing, and what are some of the most important things that you learned through that testing process?
Okay, let me pause on that really fast, because I want to speak to something you said at the beginning. I don't know why it is so hard for women to invest in themselves. I mean, I used to be there, right? And I put myself last. When I was sicker than shit for 10 years, I didn't do anything for myself. Nothing. I would maybe buy some organic produce, eat some green smoothies, but I wasn't taught actual investment in myself. I didn't understand. I didn't even know it existed, first of all, and I wasn't taught about it. And there is a real conflict when it comes to like, well, my kid needs this, but I need that. And I had a discovery call with a woman yesterday who started crying on the call and saying, I've put tens of thousands of dollars into my health already, and I'm still so sick, right? And so I know for women who are financially fatigued because they have been trying to do all the things and they still haven't gotten to that place, like, I'm sorry that's happened, but I really encourage everyone to not give up that fight. And that if you're listening to this now, you actually found people that can give you, the right guidance and direction. And that a woman's presence, like you said, being able to be there for grandma, be there for the children, be at your highest quality, best version of yourself is so important for the family now and the family to come. We are the backbone of life, of families, of communities, of our societies, of everything. And if we're not doing okay, everyone around us isn't doing okay. So even if you have given up, let this reignite you. Even if you don't have the money, please try to find it and keep fighting for your health and your quality of life, because everyone needs you and you deserve it, right? So going back to the Biomefx test, what did you ask? Sorry.
Good question. So what are some of the most important things that you have learned from doing that test? Like what makes it so impactful?
Oh gosh, we could go on about this forever. Okay. So I want to give this example, and you guys could go listen to my podcast if you want to hear the full story of this. Okay. So how this test is impactful, how it affects the thyroid. Okay. Let's just start here. So last summer, I had a sweet young girl come to me, and she's been diagnosed with Hashimoto's. She was pretty overweight, probably 100 pounds overweight, going to the gym, doing all the HIIT cardio, killing herself in the gym, not able to lose weight. Super struggling, never had a consistent thyroid lab. Her medication, the doctors were just like, like it was like kind of all the thyroid nightmare, right? So she comes to me and she's like, I want to work on my gut, to help all the things. She just wanted guidance and direction, more or less. So she comes in and we find out she has 3 gut infections. We find out that her diversity, or the amount of bacteria she has, is on the lower end. We find out that the bacteria that are more prevalent for obesity and high BMI is out of balance. We find out her estrogen isn't recycling properly. Some of her B vitamins were low. She definitely was struggling with depression, mood swings, anxiety, her GABA, her indole, all the markers for the psychobiome, which helps with the moods and all the mental aspect of life, everything was just out of balance. and it was out of whack. So it was like, wow, right? So we found out what was wrong. We put together a protocol, which was very much nutrition based. And so I had her decrease the proteins because she was kind of living that typical, like, oh, I go to the gym and I eat a lot of protein. And I was like, we're not doing that anymore. Right. So she shifted to a lot more salads, a lot more fruits, more complex carbs, less animal proteins, and just really filled in the gaps of her diet with the good stuff, right? The plant-based stuff. And she was on a very tight budget too. So she could only, I think she had 8 supplements. We had about her on like an 8-month regimen to be able to kill the infections, bring up the bacteria, and just all the repair. And so she was only able to buy like 1 supplement at a time, like every other month. So it was so her protocol her healing took her extra time because of that. But I can't tell you how amazing her transformation has been. I have before and after pictures. She has pretty much lost all the weight. Okay. And she just started addressing her gut infections first, changing her diet. She realized the test reflected that she was over exercising and her bacteria were in fight or flight. Her gut bacteria were in fight or flight because she was stretching herself to the max in the gym. So she stopped jump roping, which was hurting her feet anyways. And she just switched to a lower volume cardio, changed her diet, started working on her infections, then rebuilding. Then after the infections were resolved, taking the supplements to rebuild her bacteria. And it was just that simple, just a slow, consistent change to her protocol based on her test results. She's lost almost all the weight. And she freaked out on me a couple of weeks ago. It was so cute. She was like, oh my God. I went for my, like thyroid checkup. And it was the first time in years that her labs were stable. Her TSH was at a good place. All her like T3, T4, all the thyroid markers were stable for the first time. No change in her medications. And she was just happy and so giddy. So I actually interviewed her because her change has been so miraculous. You guys can go to my podcast, Thursday Thyroid Talks. It's Mel's fucking fabulous gut makeover. you can go listen to it.
And I'll get all of your information. I'll put it in the group so everybody can.
Yeah, it's amazing. So, I mean, how incredible is this test that it provided that sort of health change?
Yeah. So again, not going, what do I do for my T3 or what do I do for, it's like, it's such a bigger picture than just taking one little symptom and addressing that. It's like, what's really underlying that we can support. So, and I know you've got a million other stories like that as do I, but I think also, in addition to just learning for us, so we know what to suggest, it's them seeing it with their own 2 eyes and going, oh, when I see it, that's when I'm going to make the change. Someone just telling you to do something is a lot different than you knowing, because you can't unlearn it, right? Like once you hear there's a bacterial infection going on in your body, you're going to want to change it, right?
The validation, when I do share screen on Zoom and I start going over the test results and I'm like, look at your ammonia. No wonder you have brain fog. You're at 98% ammonia. And the other thing is like, oh my gosh, look at your histamine. No wonder you're living on Claritin and Flonase, and it's like, they see the bigger picture. And I think that helps with the why.
Yeah.
It helps them create their why.
Yeah. Because it's
now
not,
I'm going to do this because I know
it's not just, an idea floating out in the air. Like, oh, I should eat better. I should, lower my stress. Like those are things we hear all the time, but seeing the exact reason why these foods are going to be better for you or these foods aren't, I think it's more impactful and it gives your brain something to actually focus on. So it's not just, some idea that's out there.
Yeah. My client last week, she came to me with really bad chin acne and she was doing CrossFit, totally killing herself to lose weight, not happening. And so she's like, I want to work on my gut. And the same day I got her test results back, she posted a reel of like her grass-fed beef protein powder. And she was making like a coffee, and she's putting all this protein powder in her coffee, and she's all happy, and she sits down with her eggs and her bacon. And I'm looking at her test results and I'm like, oh my gosh. And she's over here making this reel. So I did a side-by-side of her, what she was eating, saturating herself in all of that disgusting animal protein, and going and putting her gut into protein fermentation. And then I did it with her test results. I didn't, obviously, and she was blown away. She's like, wow. So she like stopped all of that, and she still does the training. And of course, now she's losing weight. It's incredible.
There's also a lot of information out there, and people throw information out to the public, like everybody should be getting, 40 grams of protein at every meal. And, the best protein for you is animal protein. Well, that could be true for some people, but we won't know until you take your test. So it's probably not true for you, but just listening to someone who's, posting on Instagram for the masses,
Yeah,
is not the way to go. And they could be right for them or for some of their clients, but there's no way to say something like that. Like they kind of do that in the CrossFit world a little bit, and that kind of keto world, blanket statements. And there's just no way to know unless we do that test.
yeah, because everyone's dealing with a different level of gut infections, depending on the amount of antibiotics that they've been exposed to, and depending on the amount of high antibiotic food that they have ingested, right? We were talking about this on the phone.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. It's like, everyone's like, okay, I know taking antibiotics isn't that great, so I'm going to be really careful, of like going to the doctors and getting prescribed antibiotics unless it's.
And can you just pause for a moment and say why taking many rounds of antibiotics isn't that great? Maybe some people aren't familiar.
Oh, it kills the good bacteria in your gut. Okay. So it like literally kills them, like they die. And so when the ratio of good to bad bacteria is out of balance, so when you're killing your good bacteria and it's going down, it's increasing the bad bacteria's ability to grow and be more dominant in your gut. And all the bad bacteria does is cause diarrhea, constipation, bloating, brain fog, heartburn, and all these nasty symptoms that we don't want. And so, yeah, we don't want to be overtaking antibiotics, and not just antibiotics, antibacterial, anything antibacterial. I almost like cry when I see people saturating their hands in hand sanitizer and like dousing their kids too. I'm like, stop, please. Like it literally is going into your bloodstream. It's going into your gut. You're killing your good bacteria. Same with the hand soaps, same with the home cleaners, anything antibacterial, like you got it. Like, it's not just you're killing your surface bacteria, you're ingesting that and it's coming back and killing your bacteria too. So we don't want to be absorbing any sort of antibacterial, antibiotic anywhere in our life. And that includes like where we're eating out. So this is where it gets this is where you got to have that fine line of moderation, right? Because if I'm like, don't ever eat out because they have nasty conventional meat that's going to have high antibiotics in it, and it's going to kill your gut bacteria, so we're all going to hide in our home. We're never going to go out and enjoy life, right? Like, be mindful of where you're eating and be mindful of how often you're eating antibiotic doused food.
And do a little support for your body so that when we do go out to eat, my husband and I are in the restaurant business, so we go out to eat probably more than a lot of people. We cook at home all week, and then on the weekends we go out. But, we support our bodies so that when we do go out, we can handle that food. So like you said, we're not all going to sit in our house and cook 100% of our food the rest of our lives. But what you can do is just set your body up for success so that when you do have a little bit of that restaurant food and the meat that probably has antibiotics and the produce probably has glyphosate, which is a whole nother hour that we could talk about glyphosate. But you're supporting your body so that it can handle those things. And that's really what, we try and teach our clients is like, you can treat yourself but support your body in the process.
Yeah. And what I've learned from doing 2 years of these gut tests at this point is like everyone needs to be on a pre and probiotic, but not all pre and probiotics. Well, and we need to eat the foods that are, feed the bacteria as well. But, you do have to be mindful of the pre and probiotics you take because they're not all the same. I've seen studies where they're pulling pre and probiotics off the shelf at, stores and testing them, and the amount of strains that they claim are in there aren't even in there. And they can't even get past the acid in your stomach to get down to your gut. So that's why we both use Microbiome Labs supplements. They are just incredible. And they actually can survive and get into your gut and make a difference. So I was just giving a lesson in my group last week of vitamin and mineral deficiencies, where I was like, sure, I was covering water soluble vitamins, and the basics, but I decided to include pre-probiotics because this day and age, with our depleted soil, with our glyphosate, the amount of poisons we're subjected to just everywhere, and toxins, like you said, a pre and probiotic has now, in my eyes, become just as important as taking like a B complex or your omega-3, DHAs. Like it needs to be forever supported.
Yeah, I think unless you like live on a farm and are growing all of your own food and you get your hands in the dirt and you eat tons of fresh vegetables with no pesticides and are living that kind of life, which there aren't very many people like that I think you're right.
Amish.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. The Amish have amazing gut health, by the way.
Right.
If anybody wants to join an Amish community.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like, we have kind of a baseline of supplements that I think the majority of the population might want to think about being on. And I think you're right. Pre and probiotics are just going to have to become part of that baseline. So, I would prefer if everybody could get all of their nutrients and everything they need from their food. But in the way that our food system is today, it's really, I don't think it's possible unless you really put a lot of effort into it.
Yeah, our food system is just always bombarded and under attack. So yeah, it's crucial that we try to have a little garden if we can. I know it's hard, but even growing sprouts on your counter, like sprouts are phenomenal for estrogen recycling, and if we're eating, we're just exposed, women especially are exposed to a lot of estrogen, synthetic estrogen products, or our livers are stagnant or our guts imbalanced. And we just need to do these little things to support all of the functions of our gut. And just eating some simple sprouts that you grow on your counter can do that.
Yes. I love my sprouts. So we've got about 5 minutes. I do have a client coming in at 4.
Okay.
I had one question from Rachel. If I have normal TSH, normal T4, but lowered T3, do you have any natural suggestions to support the thyroid?
So the best thing to do to support the thyroid is to start working on your gut. I know you don't want to hear that, but it's just, I would stop the medication yo-yo, because that's never going to be the answer.
Yeah, she's definitely avoiding medication.
Yeah, I would, if you haven't tested yet with Marissa and started working on your gut health, I would. I see stabilization of all of my clients' thyroid hormones through working on their gut health and their nutrition. So that question, thank you. It goes right into what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Your gut converts hormones, right? It converts a lot of hormones. And as you start supporting the gut, you're naturally going to start supporting your liver, and everything flows into each other. You're going to start changing your diet, supporting your liver, supporting your gallbladder, supporting your stomach, which just goes into all the glands, and your thyroid is included in all of that. So whatever protocol Marissa would put you on to help you with your gut will carry over to supporting your thyroid as well.
Yes, ma'am. Anybody else have any other questions? Post it in the chat.
You guys are more than welcome to come follow me on Instagram. It's coach.sarah.joy.
Sarah has an awesome Instagram, you guys. I sit and watch her, and she's so funny because she'll just do stories and like just be basically talking to herself. But she's the way she presents all the information is just, you're going to want to watch her. So I'll get all of your links,
Okay.
put it in the group. And
Yeah, you guys are welcome to come DM me. You can come talk to me directly if you have more thyroid questions. But yeah, she'll link everything out and then we can hook up. But thank you so much. This was fun. I wish it was 3 hours long.
I know. I know. I realized I had a client at 4 and I'm like, oh, we only get an hour to talk.
I know. It's
we'll have to
okay.
do it
Go
again.
serve your client. We'll be in touch.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I know a lot of the ladies in the group were really excited about hearing about this because we don't know. Like nobody tells us how our gut works. Nobody tells us how our thyroid works. We have to figure it out on our own. And there's a lot of misinformation. So, you know, getting the basic information on just like how it works and why we need to support it, I think is a first good place for everybody to start.
So, and that's exactly the education is lacking and everyone's craving it. So that is why I do two calls a month of I'm just dousing my community with education because it is the first step to taking your power back is having knowledge. So my community would be a great place if they want to cross community with us both.
Yes. She's got the Butterfly Gang, which is where she shares all of her wonderful information. So I'll put a link to that. I'll put a link to your Instagram, and thank you so much. I so appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Do it again.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.